Now it's time for Toker Talk Radio, the voice of the marijuana nation.
What are you people? On dope?
Where you can toke.
I inhaled frequently.
Or you can talk.
I experimented with marijuana and didn't inhale.
Or you can toke and talk.
10 federal criminal penalties for possession of up to 1 ounce of marijuana.
While we talk about toke on Toker Talk Radio.
So, by the way, when it comes to pot, if you're 40 years old, you live in a log cabin in Oregon, you got 12 giant pot plants in your backyard, have a ball.
Live from beautiful Portland, Oregon at Rolla J Studios.
Hey, this is great.
Just not cannabis.
Plus your calls live at 971-533-7111.
They're walking on their pants with their cap on backwards, listening to Enema Man and Snoopy Poop Dog.
What's to keep somebody from getting all potted up on weed and then getting behind the wheel? Gateway theory doesn't work. It's a reality.
Holland, is it real? Don't tease me.
We're locking up people that take a couple of puffs of marijuana, and the next thing you know, they got 10 years.
And now, here's your host, the guru of ganja graphics, the sultan of sativa statistics, and the worst nightmare of a reefer mad prohibitionist. A polite, perspicacious, productive pothead with a propensity for PowerPoint. Radical Russ Belville.
Hey, welcome everybody. It's time for Toker Talk Radio, where we're here daily fighting the war on drugs.
Drugs are bad. You shouldn't do drugs. If you do them, you're bad, because drugs are bad, okay?
Okay, yeah. We're going to talk about some drug warriors later on in the program. Up in Alaska, Alaska's voting on marijuana legalization this November, and it's their, I think it's a Amendment 2 or Initiative 2 or something like that. And Project Sam's Ben Court is up there trying to make some noise about why Alaska should not legalize. Ben Court is a young man, a recovering marijuana addict. So, he knows of which he speaks. So we're going to get into a little story that was out there from KTUU, one of the stations up there in Anchorage, about their opposition to marijuana legalization. Because once again, kind of like Dr. Christian Thurstone the other day, I showed you the slide of his where he kind of inadvertently makes the case for legalization. Well, so does Ben Court. So we're going to talk a little bit about that later on in the program. Before we do, just a quick little bit of trivia. Because I was looking shit up. You know me. I'm always looking shit up. And I just happened upon the Voyager space probe. You know how the internet is, right? You're looking one thing, you click on another thing, and before you know it, you're looking at the Voyager space probe. And, of course, we've mentioned the Voyager space probe many times here on the show because Carl Sagan, Dr. Carl Sagan of the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, and, of course, the host of the Transformational Cosmos program in the 1980s that's currently being remade by Neil deGrasse Tyson. Anyway, Carl Sagan was a daily pot smoker. A lot of people don't know that, but you can Google this. You can find this out. Go to Google and type in Carl Sagan, Mr. X. Carl Sagan, Mr. X. And what you'll find is an essay that was written by Carl Sagan under the pseudonym Mr. X for his friend Dr. Lester Grinspoon of Harvard University, who was writing a book about marijuana. And Sagan explains how he came to use marijuana and found it to be very helpful, not only just socially and to relax, but also in helping him form the insights necessary when you're doing, theoretical physics and astrophysics, right? He said it helped him to have breakthroughs sometimes and to be a little more creative and be able to put more disparate thoughts together in concrete and valuable ways. So the Voyager space probe, we told you about this before, has a golden disc on it. Now, if you don't remember your space history, the Voyager space probe was launched in the 70s. And its initial mission was just to, take up close flyby pictures and get data from the inner and most of the Jovian part of the solar system, right? We're going to take a look at Mars and Jupiter and Saturn. And then, after that, whatever else we get's, gravy, right? Icing on the cake. Well, they didn't expect it to keep lasting so long, this space probe. They kind of thought it might die out, and it turned out to be hardier than they had expected, and it's now actually passed out of our solar system. It's the first man-made object to leave the solar system. It's remarkable. Now, considering that this man-made object might float around in space for eons, possibly, assuming it doesn't get, hit by a comet or sucked up by a black hole or something, right? They planned ahead and they put this disc on it, this golden disc. Now, it was, the 70s, so they were thinking like an LP, right? But they cut this LP that's meant to be played at an extremely slow speed, right? Not even like a 33 RPM, right? Like, like a 1 RPM. So it's not high quality or anything, but they had it play at such a slow speed so you could cram a bunch of data on it. And they're doing this all analog, right? Not digital. So it has music on it from various human cultures throughout time, and it has some mathematical constants to try to help them decipher what we're saying, right? Like a code breaker, kind of like a Rosetta Stone for humanity, right? Carl Sagan wrote that. Carl Sagan led the team that put together the disc that explains to alien civilizations millions of years from now that might find our probe floating through interstellar space, explains the entire human history, the entire species existence that was put together by a pot smoker. That's right. The message in a bottle floating through interstellar space that will be the remainder of all human history some million years from now was composed by a pothead. Which kind of makes sense, right? If you're going to ask someone to write a message to aliens a million years from now, you're going to pick the stoner, right? Who's else going to come up with a good idea, right? Well, I wanted to add a little something to that bit of trivia. The power plant that is currently running, they got the solar cells and stuff, but the power plant that is currently running the Voyager space probe, that has kept it running for over 3 decades, and that is still continuing to send us back data from beyond the solar system, is running on 420 watts of power. Hail Voyager. At least now we know when it comes back as V'ger in that first Star Trek movie,
we'll
it'll be
right
420
back
friendly.
After these messages from our 420 friendly sponsors. Support these advertisers because their ad money goes straight to the Russ Belville Show. You're tuned into the Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation.
When you are starting up a medical cannabis business, you don't just want any attorney. You want a fired-up lawyer who understands the needs of cannabis consumers. The law office of Lauren Vasquez is your fired-up lawyer for the cannabis industry. Lauren Vasquez knows the details of California marijuana law from both a personal and professional angle. Lauren Vasquez rose from the ranks of college normal activist to become one of the Bay Area's best marijuana lawyers. Visit her website, fireduplawyer.com, or call 1-855-MMJ-LAWS for more information. That's 855-665-5297 for Lauren Vasquez, your fired-up lawyer, or email firedupLawyer@gmail.com. The number again is 855-MMJ-LAWS, 855-665-5297 for your fired-up lawyer, Lauren Vasquez. Lauren Vasquez is an activist attorney you can trust. Call today. You can get 420 Radio on the go with the Ustream video app for Android and iPhone. Go to rad-r.us/420Ustream or just click the Ustream app icon for Android or iPhone below the live radio feed at 420radio.org. Hey Tokers and Tokettes, Radical Russ here to introduce you to my friend Matt and all the staff at Lush LED Lighting. Growing plants indoors can be a rewarding hobby, but electricity bills can go through the roof. Then you have to cool down all those big hot lights. It can drive a grower insane. With Lush LED Lighting, you can solve many of these issues and double your rewards. If you thought LEDs were meet the tech of today, Matt and his scientists have developed the perfect light for flowering plants with far less cost and heat. And the results? Let's just say I appear at a lot of events with the masters of indoor horticulture, and the harvests I saw from Lush LED lighting were big, tight, sticky, and very effective. Check out LushLEDlighting.com right now and tell them Radical Russ sent you. Double your rewards and lower your expenses with Lush LED lighting.
Yo, Zuko, you killing them. You killing them. It's your time, man. Stop playing with him. Yo, Danny, stop playing with him.
Let's take it back to the essence. Chill, homie, no fessing. Buddha blessing, good deeds, good blessings. Feeling fresh, just looking good in your presence. And my present, this flow on this beat, in this heat. 93 on a Tuesday, I'm on that purple, move kinda like a turtle. That's real smooth, on point, jump hurdles, duck gurgles, buck clowns, duck down, I'm flying now. Way too high to touch down.
All right, that's Daniel Day Zuko with La 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 on that, featuring Frankie McFire. And I mean, literally, that is Daniel Day Zuko, the fella in the green and red sunglasses there. That's me with him at, I believe it was one of the rallies in Atlanta, maybe 2011, I think. Daniel Day Zuko, big supporter of the marijuana reform movement going on in the South. And if you're interested in getting involved with the Southern reform movement, there's all sorts of places to help you out. Just send me an email. You can go to our contact form at 420radio.org/contact. You can get an email directly to me, and I'll hook you up. I'll help you find the people that are doing the hard work out there in any state across this land that is working to end adult marijuana prohibition. We're all in it together. We can do this. It's happening. It's going to happen quicker than you really can imagine it's going to happen. I mean, I talked to some veteran activists that are still stunned it's happening as fast as it is happening. By the end of this year, there will be 4 legal marijuana states. There'll be Washington, Oregon, Alaska, and Colorado. By 2016, there will be 8 legal marijuana states. We'll add California, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Maine. It's going to happen. The entire West Coast and a lot of the Northeast, New England states, will be legal by 2016. And the more states go legal, the more the non-legal states are forced to cope. Told that story in the behind the headlines about Whiteclay, Nebraska. And this was prompted by a story out of Omaha about how these counties, these border counties that are kind of rural as it is, are running out of money to patrol and jail and try and imprison people they catch with marijuana. They got so many people coming across the border now that they say that in the 4 months of 2014, they've caught as many people with marijuana as they did the entire year of 2013. Now, it's important to remember that as we're having this discussion, Nebraska is one of the decriminalized states. It was the last state to decriminalize. This was back in 1978. Passed its decriminalization law. That is the last of those 11 states that rode that wave. So possession of less than an ounce in Nebraska is just an infraction. It's just a ticket. Ticket and a $300 fine. But possession of less than an ounce for a second offense is a misdemeanor. 5 days incarceration, $400 fine. Less than an ounce third offense, misdemeanor, 7 days in jail, $500 fine. And then anything from an ounce to a pound is a misdemeanor with 3 months and $500 fine. Now, here's something that a lot of people, when they hear these kind of stats or they hear these kind of things, don't take into account. Something that I learned up close and personal in Box Elder County, Utah. See, when you get arrested, you get taken in and booked, and you're sitting there in booking, And if you want to get out, you can get bail, right? Now, bail, the way this works, here's the way it works if you don't know, because you're probably a law-abiding citizen, never had to deal with the cops, right? So here's how that works. See, you're a criminal. You're an accused criminal, I should say. Innocent till proven guilty. You're an accused criminal. And so the court wants you to show up for the trial. If they let you out of jail, they let you go, how do they know you're going to come back? Well, that's where bail comes in, right? You'll put this money up. It's like a bet. I bet $1,000 I'll show up for court. And if you show up for court, you get your $1,000. And if you don't, they get the $1,000. And see, when I got arrested for one count of marijuana and one count of paraphernalia, the bail was $1,166. So, if I couldn't come up with $1,166 that day, I'd have been staying in jail. Now, Utah's penalties are much different than Nebraska's. Utah's are like, 6 months in jail. But still, even if the penalty in Nebraska is just 5 days in jail for a second offense, when they've caught that guy and they've booked him, if he can't bail out, he's got to stay. Now, you don't always have to come up with the whole $1,166 or whatever the bail might be, because there's such thing as bail bondsman. A bail bondsman's a middleman who says, hey, I tell you what, I'll put up the bet. I'll put up the $1,000 bet that you'll show up for court if you'll pay me 10% of it. So you give me $100, I'll put up the $1,000. And this is the bail bondsman making a bet that I'll bet $100 that he shows up for court, and then I make $100. And when he shows up for court, I get my $1,000 back, right? Now, if he doesn't show up for court, well then, I'm out the $1,000, but I made $100, so I'm out $900. But I'll use that $900 to hire a bail bondsman that'll go out and find your ass and take you back in and get my bail money back. That's how that racket works. Just as an aside, I just saw a case on the news last night of a SWAT team that had bail bondsmen, bail agents that had broken into this woman's house, and it's on a 911 call, and it turned out they were at the wrong place. Anyway, you would be surprised what powers bail agents have. You'd be surprised what powers they have. Let's save that for another show. Anyway, if you can't come up with your bail money, right? So like you got busted, it's just, you got your less than an ounce of weed coming out of Colorado into Nebraska, and they pop you, and you've already had a bust before, so it's your second offense, and you get booked. If you can't come up with that $100 to pay the bail bondsman, you're staying in jail. Now, who's paying for that? Well, of course, the taxpayers are. The taxpayers are paying for that, keeping you in jail time. That's what they're all complaining about there, these little small Nebraska counties. God, we're having to keep all these guys in jail. Now, another consideration. If you're calling a bail bondsman and you're from that area, he's not too worried about making that $100 bet to get his $1,000 back. But if you're from a state away, or in my case, 2 states away, big, expansive western states away, well, they're less likely to want to take that bet. They might want to charge you more or not take the bet at all. If I didn't have amazing supporters out there that helped me come up with $1,166, I would still be in jail right now in Utah. I would still be in jail trying to scrounge up the $1,166 through collect calls on a jail phone. Not to mention the $3,707 bail it cost for someone else. But we're not going to talk about that. So these Nebraska counties are complaining, oh my God, Colorado legalized weed, and now we've got this flood of weed coming across the border. And what? Colorado's supposed to go back to prohibition? Colorado's supposed to make weed illegal again? Or what? You want to have the taxpayers send you more money so you can keep busting these guys. Now, to his credit, one of the guys in the story talks about, hey, why don't we just make it a ticket for all less than an ounces? Get rid of the second and third offense, escalation thing. That might help things. Now we're just getting tickets and actually making money. But, that makes a little too much sense. That's a little too logical for the drug war. Besides, we're talking about Nebraska, where they license 4 beer stores in a town of 10 to sell 3.6 million cans of beer a year. Well, I'm going to talk a little bit more about that today, too. Stick around. Happy 420.
Have you ever met that funny reefer man? Reefer man. If he said he swam to China, he would sell you South Carolina. Then you know you're talking to that reefer man.
I'm Radical Russ Belville, and I want to thank you for listening to 420 Radio. We couldn't survive without you and our sponsors, and I'd like you to check out one of our prime sponsors, the National Cannabis Coalition. I've been working with NCC since June of 2012, and I'm proud to be part of the team they have assembled. National Cannabis Coalition is building the partnerships with reformers, lawmakers, and industry we need to be successful. Visit the National Cannabis Coalition website at nationalcannabiscoalition.com or the easier-to-remember ncc420.com. That's where you'll get the exclusive first look at my radical rants, as well as informative articles from the nation's top cannabis pundits. Visit ncc420.com today, and if you have your phone handy, text Russ to 420-420 to support NCC and 420 Radio. It's a free text message that helps us help you end adult marijuana prohibition. Learn more at ncc420.com, and thanks for supporting independent marijuana legalization public radio.
Marijuana, do you wanna? Mary, do you wanna tonight?
As marijuana goes mainstream, you need to be armed with the facts. Nobody can teach you better than Dr. Mitch Earlywine, Ph.D. You may know Dr. Mitch from his column in High Times magazine or his weekly appearance on The Russ Belville Show. Dr. Mitch is also the author of some of the best books on marijuana science, culture, history, and health, including Understanding Marijuana, Parents' Guide to Marijuana, Pot Politics, and more. Visit Amazon.com and search for Mitch Earlywine, that's EARLEYWINE, and order your books today. You can also contact Dr. Mitch by email at 420research@gmail.com.
Fun.
What's happening, cool cats? This is Big Daddy, and I want you to cruise on over to the Funky Roller Rink. We'll be grooving all night long.
I like it.
Doors open at 11 Eastern, 8 Pacific, every Thursday night.
Funky, delicious.
This song is from a band, me and Rocker T and Alex V have in New York City called Skadanks. This is also going back 3 or 4 years, one of the original Cannabis Cup band's classic herb melodies.
This is the song that we sing when we go on the road and we go to a place and we're in a place and we don't know anybody and we got no connections and we can't get no grass. You know what I'm saying? This is the song that we sing, for real. I'm not kidding, for real. Watch the ride. Pass me the herb and I'll burn the herb. Pass me the herb and I'll burn the herb. Pass me the herb and I'll burn the herb. What's the word? It's the herb, burn the herb. Pass me the herb and I'll burn.
That's the Cannabis Cup Band with Pass Me the Herb. Welcome back. It's 420 Radio. I'm Radical Russ. Glad to have you here. So in hour one, we talked a little bit about poor Nebraska. Colorado went and legalized weed, and now they've got to bust so many stoners they can't afford it anymore. Doggone it. Prohibition's so darn expensive. Now, as mentioning, I wanted to get the name of the guy who was saying, first of all, here's some of the things that the Nebraska sheriff was saying. This is Dual County, Nebraska, Adam Hayward. He said he's got a significant increase in the amount of cases and incidences with marijuana coming across from Colorado. Just this year, there's so much cannabis confiscated and locked up in Dual County, if sold illegally, it could buy the deputies new cruisers. 1 out of every 5 cars, we are now finding something in there, Hayward said. So, he says, The problem they've got is anyone caught with an ounce or more of marijuana in Nebraska faces 3 months in jail. Dual county deputies caught an entire year's worth of 1 ounce violators in 4 months. And we're paying for them to be housed. We're paying for them to be fed. We're paying for their medical expenses, which a lot of them do have, Hayward said. Now, I love that part of the quote. What that says to me is that there's a lot of people coming back from Colorado weed who are using it medically. You're paying for their medical expenses. Why do you suppose they were bringing back more than an ounce of weed from Colorado? Probably taking care of their medical conditions. He also continues, quote, a lot of them, even though they have money to buy drugs, they don't have money to pay for an attorney. Therefore, the county has to pay for the public defender. I love this idea, right? That, well, you've got enough money to buy drugs. You should be able to buy an attorney. No. No. My attorney, just so far, we haven't even we're not even to the point of getting like a case yet. Right? The Utah Highway Patrol still hasn't even forwarded the charges. We don't even know that there's a case yet. And that's cost me $750. You know how much weed I can get in Portland, Oregon for $750? Oh my God. And no slight to attorneys. Well, they got mountains of student loan debt, and it's a stress job. I wouldn't wish it on anyone. It's tough, right? So nothing against attorneys. Got a lot of attorney friends, but yeah, right. So we even though they have money to buy drugs, they have to get a public defender. Well, shit, man. An ounce of weed in Colorado is going to cost you $300 if it's really good weed, right? $300, you're going to burn an hour of attorney time there, right? So it makes no sense. There's a senator, though, that his name's Ken Shills, who represents Dual County in Nebraska, who says it's a huge issue. The sheriff there is having to, and the county, pay for a lot of the enforcement and a lot of the prosecutions. He admits the problem isn't going to go away. With this year the way it was, we just don't have enough information, enough knowledge out there about what was going on to really affect the change we need to have, or what that change may be, he says. Officials said legislation could help make a difference. It would be a good idea, Shills said, in my mind, if they would have harsher fines as far as those people caught with under a pound. If we could just have the authority to cite them with a heavier fine and let them go down the road. But the flip side of that is, are they going to pay their ticket then? Haywood said. So, even the sheriff is saying, well, if we could have the authority to just cite them with a heavier fine and let them go on down the road, they want even better decriminalization to save money. That's the effect legalization has, people. That's the dominoes that we're talking about in the marijuana legalization business here. Once one state legalizes, the states around them can't help but change their marijuana laws. It may not lead to legalization in Nebraska anytime soon, but even expanding that decriminalization so that people caught with less than a pound would just be ticketed and fined would be an enormous change in Nebraska. We've got these CBD only states, 8 of them now, where most of them don't provide any marijuana or CBD. You got to go out of state to get it and traffic it back to your state. We've got states openly calling for the parents of sick kids to violate federal law over this stuff. Right? This is the angle that the people upset about CBD only legislation don't see. I'm trying to see the long arm of this, the long expanse of what happens by doing this. Number one, the CBD bills got legislators to admit there are medical components to marijuana. To get a Southern Republican saying that is huge. And two, this situation, this untenable situation of forcing parents to have to break federal law is just going to force the discussion further into decriminalization and eventual legalization. So these are good things that are happening. Maybe not in the short term, but I think long term they're going to be good. Now, the story here concludes that with the legislature out of session, it will now be at least a year before lawmakers can discuss the issue. Even then, a senator needs to write a bill. And so far, none have written anything about this. Let's make that a cause. Anybody out there from Nebraska Normal? We used to have a really big Nebraska Normal presence. I remember them. Think about that as an angle now. Expanded decriminalization. Fines, tickets and fines for anybody £1 or less. It'd be the most expansive decriminalization in the country. The states around Colorado are going to have to confront this. They're just going to have to. The other thing to be, on the flip side here, to be afraid of a little bit, is that federal coal guideline memo that set up the 8 priorities, and one of which was no interstate diversion. Now we've got all these legislators and sheriffs in these border states screaming about how much diversion there is. Does that embolden the feds to want to crack down? Let's see what happens as we approach this election. When Oregon and Alaska legalize, that changes the conversation. But if the Senate falls into Republican hands, that also changes the conversation. This election will tell us a whole lot about where we go from here. I'm hoping for the former and not the latter. And imagine if, God forbid, Alaska and Oregon lost and the Senate fell into Republican hands. Oh, God. Colorado and Washington would be expecting federal agents anytime. So this is a long battle we got going for us here. Now, flipping this back to Nebraska and their hypocrisy. I didn't know a thing about this Whiteclay, Nebraska. It's amazing. It's an amazing story. If you can envision in your mind North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska, right? That's how they go from, Canada on south, right? And that line between, the border between South Dakota and Nebraska is just a straight line till you get to the far east of it and it hits a river. I think it's the Missouri. I could be wrong. Mississippi, maybe. I don't know. Anyway, not a geography quiz. But if you can imagine this long straight line, right? And on the north side of the line, in the middle kind of, there's this big blob that is the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation. It's one of 7 Indian reservations in South Dakota. It's the only Indian reservation in South Dakota that is dry. It's maintained alcohol prohibition since its founding in 1889, except for a brief period in the 70s when they didn't have it, and then they went back to having it. And now, in 2013, the tribe had a vote on whether to allow alcohol sales that passed by a few hundred votes, I believe. But there's an injunction on it because some activists have said that there was a problem with the polls, that they didn't put voting polls in all 9 of the reservation districts or something, right? So it wasn't a fair election. So it still hasn't been implemented yet. So technically right now, still, the Pine Ridge Reservation is a dry reservation. No alcohol sales, no alcohol possession. Got to understand, folks, when we talk about alcohol prohibition of the 20s, possession was legal. If a cop caught you with a bottle of booze, it wasn't illegal. You weren't arrested and thrown in jail. It was legal to possess it. It was legal to drink it. You just couldn't buy it. You couldn't sell it. You couldn't transport it. Couldn't manufacture it. But if you had it, no big deal. So this prohibition on Pine Ridge is worse than American alcohol prohibition. It doesn't even allow you to possess it. Now, I'm not one to argue for prohibition. Prohibition doesn't work. And if anything, the Pine Ridge and Whiteclay situation shows you that. No matter how you set up a prohibition, as long as there's supply and demand, someone will supply the demand. Okay, and that's what happened. So anyway, going back to imagining the line, you got this line, you got the Pine Ridge Reservation, which is this, big area north of the line. And then there's this little box just south of the line, little 50 square mile box south of the line that's in Nebraska. And this was added on by President Arthur, I believe it was President Arthur at the time, 1882, 88, something like that. to find my notes here. Yeah, so they set up this 50 square mile extension south of the Pine Ridge Reservation in this area on the Nebraska border, where all of the bootleggers, going back to before there was an actual reservation, going back to like the mid 1800s, where all the alcohol bootleggers were selling the alcohol to the natives, to the Native Americans. And you know, maybe you don't know, but the history of alcoholism in Native American situations, right? There's a different, it affects their bodies differently. There's a different evolution to Native Americans genetically versus Europeans and Africans and Asians and such, in that they didn't have the alcohol like we did, didn't evolve with it, and it devastates their communities. Alcohol is just terrible. I mean, we're talking about reservations with 60% alcoholism rates, you know? And, you know, not to dismiss the effect of poverty, stolen lands, destroyed cultures, you know, the awful, awful, awful things that happen to the Native Americans that also might lead one to want to drink. But, yeah, so they set up this 50 square mile little buffer zone. This little zone in Nebraska where they said you can't have liquor here because you're right next to the reservation. I'll tell you how that turned out when we come back.
It's simply business. It's simply business. It's simply business, you know why they won't let us grow. It's simply business.
We'll be right back after these messages from our 420 friendly sponsors. Support these advertisers because their ad money goes straight to the Russ Belville Show. You're tuned into the Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation.
It's simply business. It's simply business. It's simply business, you know why they won't let us grow. It's simply business. It's simply business, you know why they won't let us grow. It's simply business.
Let them bring in the beat. Adam Hand of Handmade Apparel produces quality custom designs for t-shirts, hats, and other apparel. Handmade Apparel is the official design shop for 420 Radio, The Russ Belville Show, Ganja John, and Cascadia Concentrates, among many clients who rely on Adam Hand for everything from short-run custom projects to full-run clothing lines. Adam's meticulous designs are individually crafted and screened in vibrant high-definition color. Visit handmadeapparel.biz to browse the selection of handmade gear or to get a personal quote for your own designs. Handmade Apparel, a proud supporter of 420radio.org.
Let them bring in the beat.
Support the Russ Belville Show. Text the word Russ to 420-420 and connect with the National Cannabis Coalition. You can also send $10 to the Russ Belville Show right from your smartphone. That's Russ to 420-420. You're listening to Radical Russ on the Russ Belville Show.
.420 Radio is 24-hour marijuana legalization radio.
I'm a doctor. I'm a lawyer.
I'm a journalist.
I'm a student.
I'm a teacher.
I'm a representative.
I have cancer.
The outdated laws of prohibition are more dangerous than the plant itself.
I lost my scholarship.
I was fired.
20 million arrests since 1965. This is getting ridiculous.
Our prisons are overcrowded with non-violent offenders.
We have the opportunity to change.
This is costing our country billions of dollars.
Making my family and I fight in a courtroom is difficult enough when I'm already fighting through chemotherapy.
There's no reason to be scared by tradition anymore.
We can stop this. We can stop this.
We are the American people.
We can stop this.
And you have our support.
We are old,
Young.
Straight.
Gay.
we're every race and nationality.
And we're not going to give up.
You can tax it.
You can regulate it.
Apply age restrictions.
You can create millions of new jobs.
We can save our economy.
President Obama?
It's time for legalization.
Legalization.
Yes.
We
can.
Welcome back, everybody. Music from Double Jack there. That's Sergeant Payne. Fridays is our day for rock and roll. If you want to catch at 2 p.m., 5 p.m., 8 p.m., and again, 2 a.m., 5 a.m., 8 a.m., we always have a music show on. The 2 o'clock music show is our daily Toker Tunes, which is just random selections of the tunes we've been playing for 5 years here on the Russ Belville Show. Some great stuff in there. Then at 5 and 8, you get the replay and the new version of our daily music shows. On Monday, we've got the new Viper Hour. Got the Reefer Jazz, Blues, and Swing. On Tuesdays, Electric Tuesdays with electric dance music, Electric Bob's Boogaloo. On Wednesdays, we got Gordon Green's Music Planet. You can catch that with some great music from across the globe, as we're now calling it. Thursdays, that's tonight, Big Daddy Fink's Funky Roller Rink. That's coming up next. And at 5 next, you're going to catch last week's show. And then at 8 o'clock, a brand new show. That's the way it works. 5 o'clock, you get the last week replay. 8 o'clock, you get the brand new one. And we got a new Motown-based Funky Roller Rink coming up at 8 o'clock tonight. And then tomorrow, again at 5 and 8, the Herb Thrasher Flower Hour. 5 o'clock, you'll get the replay. 8 o'clock, we're on live for 2 hours of metal, marijuana, and mayhem with me and Herb Thrasher. All right, coming back here, I made a brief remark as we were talking about that last subject, the Pine Ridge Reservation, about the genetic predisposition of Native Americans toward alcoholism. And one of our chatters said that's not true. And I don't know if it is or not. It's something I've always heard. I don't know if always, but I've heard and maybe glommed onto it as a fact. But, you know, I'm not for certain that it is a fact. So, you know me, I look shit up. And so I looked stuff up, right? And so I found some stuff, and I still don't know, even though I looked stuff up, right? I found this paper from 1998 that says evidence for genetic linkage to alcohol dependence on chromosomes 4 and 11 from an autosome-wide scan in an American Indian population. Okay. And you know me, I read a lot of studies in this job. I'm lost. I'm lost on this one. I'll tell you, it's got the discussion. It doesn't even have a conclusion, really. But here at the end, there's a paragraph that says, in summary, these suggestive linkage findings provide interesting foci for future investigations. Populations such as this American Indian tribe with a very high prevalence of alcoholism may afford unique opportunities for finding protective factors in addition to those seen with ADH. After further confirmation, it will be of interest to determine whether or not these suggestive linkage findings generalize to other American Indian or non-American Indian populations. Okay. So this is a 1998 paper, Evidence for Genetic Linkage to Alcohol Dependence on Chromosomes 4 and 11 from an autosome-wide scan in an American Indian population. But that's an old study, so I don't know if I'm going to buy any of that. But we got a phone call. Let's find out what callers think at this point. You're on the air with Toker Talk Radio.
Hey, Russ, it's Ken Justice. How's it going?
Oh, I'm doing good. What's up?
Not much. Hey, I was thinking, on the alcohol issue and the endocannabinoid discussion from yesterday. That might be some Dr. Mitch territory that we could ask when he comes on.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I file these in my Ask Dr. Mitch notebook. Definitely want to ask him about the alcohol linkages and any of that, because I really don't know. I was just saying that one study doesn't really tell me what I was trying to find out. I find another study, if I can find, where was this one? The health-related effects of genetic variations of alcohol metabolizing enzymes in African Americans. And another study, variations in Southwest California Indians, that say it's unlikely they have a genetic variant. So I still don't know.
I think alcohol just messes you up in general is the one conclusion.
That's for sure.
I drink alcohol anyways. But another question that I would like to ask him is about the endocannabinoid system, because I've the young lady that was on yesterday was talking about it, and I've always wondered why I've never heard about this. Why, when I look it up on Google, there's not that much, you know what I mean?
On the endocannabinoid system?
Yeah, definitely.
There's it is shocking. It's like we were talking to Teresa yesterday, and she was saying, it's like we have a digestive system, we have an endocrine system, we have a nervous system, and we have an endocannabinoid system. And not discussing it is like not discussing your endocrine system or your digestive system. It makes no sense. I mean, it's
crazy, because I tell people about it, and people just look at you like, you're crazy. You smoke too much weed, dude. Like, that's how they look at you, and then it takes a lot of convincing to convince someone that they have one.
Yeah.
But they do.
I met a new colleague, and she's in town now. She's out of Atlanta, but she's in town now for this Patients Out of Time conference. Her name's Dr. Uma Dhanabalan, and we'll have her as a guest on the show soon. But that's one of her points, is she says she believes that the more people know they have an endocannabinoid system, the less afraid of marijuana legalization they'll be. Because as it is now, and this is something I was kind of touching on yesterday too, is like, we have 1,000 words for drinking, right? We have tipsy, buzz, sloshed, blotto, shit-faced, drunk, all of these different words. We're like Eskimos in snow, right? We got all these different levels for drinking. But when it comes to smoking pot, we have high. You smoking pot, you're getting high, right? And if that leaves it in this mysterious, weird place where also heroin and cocaine and all these other things live, because you get high on those too, right? So she thinks that if we talked more about an endocannabinoid system, we could better, define for people what's actually happening, and they'd be less afraid of it.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's hard to convince someone who has probably never smoked and is really not in the culture, and really it's foreign to them, so it's an other, you know what I mean? So it's off-putting. But to explain to them that there are different levels of highness, you know what I mean? Like, there's, you're not getting off the couch, and then you're going to go about your day, and that's the spectrum.
Different levels and different kinds, that's
exactly.
the other thing.
And everyone's different, like everyone, I mean, life, if you're alive, you're a sack of chemicals, and so everyone's different. They're made up differently. And I've heard, the way I react to cannabis differs from other people, and there's that. So it's not just some black and white cut and dry thing, and it's really annoying sometimes.
Yeah, I agree. And this is why, part of what we do here, and what we encourage our listeners to do, is to open up to people and try to just show them that, hey, I'm a pot smoker, and ooh, nothing scary.
Yep. That's how you do it. Normal.
Right on, man.
You have a good one.
Thanks for the call.
Later.
Yeah, I do think that's a big part of what we have to do is we have to demystify the high. And this is why, I've lately been going on these rants about medical marijuana and how THC is medical marijuana. And if you want your medical THC, you're going to have to address the high. You're just going to have to. You can't get away with, well, patients don't get high or patients are using it for medicine. Well, whatever, right? Somebody who smokes pot all the time develops a tolerance. It doesn't matter if they've got cancer or if they're healthy. Someone who smokes pot as often as I do, no matter what their medical chart says, will get the same relative level of high as me. Again, excepting for genetic variations and how everyone's different. But you get my point? That endocannabinoid system, we all have it. Patients and healthy people have it. And we all have those receptors in our amygdala. And we all experience the sensations. We all get dry mouth. We all get euphoric. We all forget where we left our keys. So there we go. Yes. Big Daddy Fink, thanks. I was just checking up the chat room. Okay, so telling you about Dr. Uma, right? Dr. Uma Dhanabalan, who herself has just learned that there's an endocannabinoid system. A doctor. And she was the one that's telling us like 16% of doctors are instructed on the fact that there is an endocannabinoid system and what it does? That most doctors out there have never even been taught it? That's insane. That's crazy. That's just amazing that that's allowed to continue, especially since we've known about this endocannabinoid system now for going on close to 20 years, at least 15. It's just insane. So anyway, here's a little bit of trivia too. Dr. Uma's brother invented email. Let me let that sink in. I'm not talking like invented, Hotmail or Gmail. I'm talking the actual technology, the base technology of all email. He invented it. So I'll get to meet the guy. One of these days, I'm going to get to meet the guy who invented email, for God's sake. That's wild. That's amazing. But anyway, we'll see if we can get Dr. Uma into the studio tomorrow. I know she's in town. I'm going to give her a call later tonight. I'm sure they're still just winding up the Patients Out of Time conference there. Here in Portland, Oregon. So we'll check that out. Meanwhile, let me go back to Whiteclay, Nebraska. As Speed Limit in the chat room has been telling people, Google Earth it. Take a look at Whiteclay, Nebraska. And you drink too, if you live near there. Anyway, this story that I found on it, this was a story from the Journal Star. What's the date on this? February 21st. Okay, so this is from this year, February 21st. On the morning, the Nebraska Liquor Control Commission released 2013 statistics showing that beer sales in Whiteclay had decreased for the fourth straight year. Marcia Bonfleur delivered coffee and breakfast sandwiches to 18, maybe 20 people drunk on the streets of the Pine Ridge Reservation border town. Well, the usual is how her husband, Bruce, described the morning. Probably about 20 people out there drinking, just continuing the ongoing saga of Whiteclay, Nebraska. You got twice as many people drunk on the streets in the morning at breakfast time than you have people living in the town. And you don't think that's a problem? Now, they do point out that the beer sales in the 4 licensed beer cellars of a town of 10 people, 4 licenses. Did I mention that? 4 places to buy beer in a town of 10 people. 2 guys shop at one store, 2 guys shop at the other store, 3 guys stop at the third store, and 3 guys shop at the fourth store, I guess, right? Buying 10,000 cans of beer a day. Well, it was 336,217 gallons of beer sold out of Whiteclay last year. And the year before, it was 364,000. The year before that, it was 403,000. And in 2010, they had sold 465,000 gallons of beer out of Whiteclay, Nebraska, population 10. Now, I bring this up because I've been following these stories out of, well, hell, every state that's trying to have dispensaries or pot shops. And I keep hearing about this need to make sure they're 1,000 feet away from schools and 1,000 feet away from every others. And Washington State can only have 334 of these pot shops. And gosh, Seattle can only have 21 of them. And in Colorado, we got to let these localities ban their pot shops. And in Oregon, man, we got to have moratoriums to figure out how they're going to work. But in Nebraska, you can sell 10,000 cans of beer out of 4 stores in a town of 10 people. We'll be right back.
You're tuned into the Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation.
Are you or is someone you know a marijuana smoker? Have you or is someone in your family been arrested for a marijuana violation? You need to know the truth about pot. NORML, the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws, is the most comprehensive source of information regarding marijuana and its effects on health, as well as legal issues. NORML even offers a database of lawyers specializing in cannabis in your area. NORML, the nation's largest and most successful marijuana law reform organization, has spent decades gathering the knowledge and science on everything related to cannabis. NORML is the best resource to find out the truth about marijuana, connect with a lawyer in your area, or help find an end to prohibition. Information is available at NORML.org, that's NORML.org, or toll free at 888-67-NORML.
My heavens flow, but the song the same. Seems I'm always looking when I hear your name.
420radio.org is proud to replay Drug Truth Network Cultural Baggage with Dean Becker from Houston, Texas. Pioneering marijuana radio activist Dean Becker continues his illustrious career, interviewing reform luminaries on his Century of Lies and Cultural Baggage shows from Pacifica's KPFT in Houston. Catch the replays Wednesday at 11 Pacific on 420radio.org.
Liebermater is misbehaving today. Don't know what's up. That's music from the Grassmasters with Paint It Black, the Stones classic. Winding things up here on Toker Talk Radio. I wrote up that piece on Whiteclay, Nebraska for High Times. We'll see if it gets posted tomorrow. And I hope they include the links, because the more I read on this story, the more it just pisses me off. I am not in any way a supporter of prohibition, but I am a supporter of sensible regulations. And I don't think it's sensible to allow there to be 4 off-sale beer licenses in a town of 10 people on the border next to a dry Indian reservation. I think there's something wrong there. It's one thing to be, allowing the sales of alcohol to adults, I'm all for it. It's another thing to be actively fostering alcoholism and fetal alcohol syndrome. To be contributing to the problem instead of regulation being a harm reduction issue. But it's alcohol, so we never care about that. Hey, I'm Radical Russ. Thanks for joining us. Big Daddy Fink's Funky Roller Rink is next with That's Funkin' Sexy. And then at 8 p.m., the new Motown edition. Check it out.
This is the Russ Belville Show. The Russ Belville Show is blogging and podcasting daily at radicalruss.com.
For everyone here at 420radio.org and all the VIP members, thanks for joining us. See you tomorrow. Until next time, take care of each other, Tokers.
You grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes down.
Funky roller ring, roller ring, roller ring.